of the world. We are recording today's event, so for you to know and let us know if there's any concern, just you can write it in the chat. Otherwise, this recording will be mainly for keep track of the event, of course, and I share it with our network. So, well, first of all, we want to present ourselves a little bit more. My name is Andrea Tauta. I work in Butterfly Works. And Butterfly Works is a social design studio where we pioneer the use of co-creation and design thinking in international development to support different kinds of solutions with social impact, especially in the education and communication sector. We've been working for more than 20 years to use co-creation and design thinking, and in that way create a world where people have a say in the future that they want. It is also maybe important to say that we work mostly demand-driven, and that we work with the stakeholders to support the creation of solutions that respond to the shared values and the needs of the people. So this is a little bit just a presentation of who we are and where this process has started. And maybe just as a highlight, we use a design thinking methodology where we go from the setting the scene, so understanding the social need, towards researching, so using a lot of creative methods to understand the social needs and what the community needs. We go through a process of ideation, creating and testing, and then a handover. And basically, this process ensures that we are constantly looking for sustainable solutions where we can easily test and see how is our work impacting, and making the necessary arrangements for it to be able to create more sustainable and scalable solutions in the long run. Yeah, can we go to the next slide? So, this brings us here on what are we doing today and the project process. So this event came up some months ago when we started thinking about the importance of celebrating the World Habitat Day, because we believe, we believe that there is indeed a need to talk more about how we create our urban settings more sustainable and more habitable. So we initiated a participatory research that engaged youth worldwide. So it was a worldwide invitation for youth to enter this research, and through the research work on developing some ideas that will be presented today. So the research links to the feelings of well-being, the use of public space, environmental conservation, as well as other issues related to sociocultural and political dimensions surrounding this topic. And the main objective of this participatory research is to encourage young people worldwide to become researchers of their own cities and collect insights on what is the use and need for creating sustainable futures. And we do it supporting them with our tools and experience. So we develop an exploration lab with the youth, in which we started with a kickoff design thinking training. Then we went to an analysis training where we use the research and the findings gathered by them in the exploration lab to support them in the ideation of some concepts that will be presented today. And we did a last speech preparation training for today's event. So we are very excited for them to share a bit more about this with you. So just to go very briefly over the agenda. So we will have today 3 amazing speakers, Katrina Liznichuk from Habitat for Humanity. Also joining us today is Daniel Boyko from Oxfam Novib, as a climate change policy specialist. And then we are also have invited today to present Insaf Ben Odmane, which is a change maker and community development in Lebanon. We will then have some moment for a Q&A session. So you will have opportunity to share with them some questions and and thoughts about these three presentations. Then we go to a short break, and then we do the presentations of the youth, where they will pitch the ideas that they work in the research. Furthermore, we will explain a bit more about our exploration lab, our methodology, and then we will have some closing remarks. So just to go ahead and start, I will give the word now to Katrina. Katrina.
Thank you, Andrea, and welcome everyone. I'm really excited to be here with you today in this really special day for us, and I think for all of us, not just for me as part of Habitat for Humanity, but also for all of you that I know you were working on this last month on thinking about how can we make more livable and greener cities. So this is a really honor for me to be with you today. And just for start, I think a little more about me. I'm working in Habitat for Humanity since 2013, like it's 8 years from now. And I think I am still a young people. I am just in the border between the youth and adult, and I'm really excited to be represented like the youth people in my organization too. So we were working for the last 5 years with a youth strategy in the organization, and we really believe that youth is the engine and the strength that we need to do more action in terms of urban action and housing action. So in that sense, I want to start with a little activity because I'm really interested on knowing how do you think about the word habitat. And for doing that, I don't know if I can share my screen. Can I?
Yes, you should be able.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. So first of all, I want you to go to the link that I just shared in the chat. It's an exercise that I want to do with you first. And also, if you cannot access or you just don't want to access to this activity and you don't want to do this activity with us today, you can see it in my screen. Yeah, I think you are seeing the Miro board right now in the screen, right? Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So this little activity is just to reflect on what does the word habitat mean to you in that case. And the idea here is that you take just 5 minutes. It's a quick exercise. And I see that someone of you are just starting. And the idea is just to say it as if you are presenting it as a slogan. Like in this example, for instance, for myself, habitat means a world where everyone has and will have a decent place to live, not just in the present, but also in the future. And I choose those emojis to represent my slogan about what the word habitat means to me. So I will give you 5 minutes here in our Miro board, and let's start.
Also, if there is anyone who would like us to add their contribution, just add it to the chat as well, and we can also add it to the Miro board for you.
Thank you, Andrea. I see a lot of people contributing. Remember, just to add emojis, you need to go to these 3 dots here, and then you select emojis. And you also can write or search emojis here. I start to see some good slogans. Safe place to coexist, the social and natural environment we live in, place where human exists, a place where it can live freely and feel safe, a place where good living is possible, a place where different species coexist in harmony, a place where not just human but other living beings can coexist, a safe shelter physically and emotionally. Some of you are like more experienced here in added not just emojis but pictures. A peaceful and safe world where people live in harmony with the environment and with all living beings. That's a lot of contribution here. Thank you so much for that. And let's give us 2 more minutes to finish this activity. We have 20 seconds left. And now time is up. Thank you so much for all your contributions here. I'm seeing a lot about coexisting. I'm seeing not only like thinking about humans, but also other species in harmony and safety and good living or livable environment, prosperity, a balance. So I think now we have a generation that is quite aware about the importance to have a world in a habitat, not just for us, but also for the future generations. And that's amazing, actually. And I think that's a really goal that we can say that we are achieving now. If we youth people know more about the importance of that, I think we are going to the right we are going in the right way to achieve this goal, that important goal. So thank you very much for this activity. I think after this activity, we want to do like a poster, and then we can maybe share it in our social media, and then if you can, we can just tag on tags in the social media, so we can all see how do we think about habitat in the World Habitat Day.
That's a great idea. We will do it.
Yeah. Okay, so let me start my official, because I really don't want to talk very much, and you will see at the end of my presentation, you will see why. But now let me start my official presentation. I promise it won't be long. It's actually, it's for us, it's really important to know the things, all the things that you are thinking about Habitat. That is more important than all the things I can or I may say to you. That's why I wanted to start with that exercise instead of start with my presentation. In this case, I just want to present briefly what does Habitat means for Habitat for Humanity. First of all, the thing that you saw in the example of the exercise is the vision of Habitat for Humanity. Is a place, our vision is a place where a world with everyone, where everyone can have a decent place to live. So we really believe on that. And when we are saying everyone, we especially mean everyone by humans, but we also know that we need to improve the way that we are thinking the habitat right now, so we can have an habitat in the future. So that's really important for us. And now we are celebrating the World Habitat Day, and the slogan or the topic for this year is accelerating urban action for a carbon-free world. And we are knowing, and we are every day we are more aware that when we are talking about habitat, we are talking about mostly cities, because humans are they are living in cities more and more, and we are made for living in cities. And in this sense, I want to explain you why, or what is our vision about habitat, or how we Habitat for Humanity understand the habitat problem or the habitat topic right now. And just to make you an idea about the complexity of the topic that we are talking in this day, we think in Habitat for Humanity, we think that because we have a systemic bias and disruptions socially, and people can and always experience inequity at multiple levels and in many different ways, and not just in social, but also in economic and in infrastructure, in places that the families are living now, or the people are living now. So if we want a family to be successful on their housing journey, we have to consider the systemic failures and barriers to housing, not just the housing itself. We know that there is more barriers behind the housing problem. And neglecting issues at any of the levels puts their sustained success on the housing journey at risk. And for that, we apply the housing ecosystem lens to allow us to identify the different factors that exist on many levels that hamper or support people on their housing journey. So applying this lens is how we, Habitat, start supporting people to thrive through housing. That is our main goal, to see the people thrive through housing. And we collaborate with people to understand the barriers in the housing ecosystem so we can act on those barriers. And also we collaborate in three main levels. We collaborate with the community, with people. We see people as our allies, not as our beneficiaries. And we understand, and we think that we are in a position of a systemic leader, and we partner with these people, with private and public sector and civil society, to reduce inequities in the housing ecosystem. And as system leaders, we have to work through engagement and coalition building to bring about the change they seek. And it is at this level that our three-house strategy, which remains at the heart of all our work, is most evident. We can call out the work that we do with vulnerable and excluded individuals, households, and communities in the public and private sectors, and as well as leading evidence generation, awareness, raising, and advocacy. So that those are our 3 levels: community, private, and the in public sector, and in society. And then, because our mission
Sorry, Katrine, I think we lost part of the audio.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. Now?
Yeah, go ahead. I think your video is detained, but we can see you. We can hear you.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Okay.
For us, it's putting people in the center is our main approach. And finally, we believe if we can work on the systemic bias and the barriers that the housing ecosystem has, and working on these 3 levels with people, the sectors, and the society, we can achieve, we can improve, we can break these barriers for the people so they can thrive with dignity, security, and resilience through housing. So that is our main goal in Habitat for Humanity, and we believe that we don't need to, it's not enough to just think about the housing problem or the infrastructure problem or economic problem. It's more about this ecosystem in housing, this housing ecosystem that we need to focus on, because the problem is more complex than just one of those aspects. So in this case, and the thing that I was working on for the last 5 years, it's how can we empower young people and increase their awareness to build resilient community. And for that, we 5 years ago, we started to work with the IFRC, and that is International Federation of the Red Cross. And we have been prioritizing joint efforts on disaster preparedness on the community level. And we targeted youth as a powerful force and agents of change within their families and communities. And during these past 5 years, Habitat and IFRC have invested significant resources into creating a youth-friendly and participatory methodology. And this is PASA Youth. PASA Youth stands for Participatory Approach for Safe Shelter and Settlement Awareness. And and basically this is a program, and this is a program that allows youth people to build, first of all, to understand, diagnose, or analyze the situation in terms of especially the urban situation, and all the risks that they have, all the past events, all the vulnerabilities, and also the capacities. So they can, after that, after analyzing and identifying the main hazards, the main vulnerabilities and capacities in their communities, then can know how can these vulnerabilities can become more on, or how can they build more on more capacities in their community so they can face those vulnerabilities against the hazards. So in that terms, we work with them on a sensitization program, and then a design program, or a design phase in this program, because this is a methodology. And then after all, they end to plan and to design and to build a little project, and then more projects with peers or with other youth in their community. So in this case, we use a lot of technical tools, and also design and analysis tools also, not just technological ones. And we want to, and we work with them also on the strengthening of the leadership skills, so they can become actually agents of change in their communities. And after all this program, or this is the program that could last 2 months or a little more, but at the end they can actually build and actually take action in their community by building some mitigation or preparedness projects in their community, as for instance solid waste management initiatives and disaster preparedness via mapping safe community spaces or evacuation routes. Also can include urban art interventions for safe public space, backyard lanes, or reuse, or repurposing of dam spaces, lighting for increased safety, or shelter improvements collectively, because those are like really oriented to community-based projects. And those photos that you are seeing here are like examples of that. And actually, and we do all of this through the use, or we really use these technical tools or social media and urban mapathons, prototype fabrications. We actually worked in the past with small fab labs or maker spaces. And they can also do small scale simulations, gaming, co-designing, awareness campaign, all the things that they consider that is important for the community in terms of shelter and safe spaces, shelter and settlements. And at the end, we in these 5 years, and especially in the two past years, we with Butterfly Works actually we did a global platform to engage all the people related to PASA in terms of PASA facilitators, especially, so the people who facilitate the methodology with the people in community. And now we have it, it's a reality, and for us it's a big step to still and to maintain more people and more youth people engaged in this. And just to finish my presentation, and this is a reminder for us that the theme for this year's World Habitat Day is this: accelerating urban action for a carbon-free world. And this theme recognizes that cities are responsible for some 70% of global carbon dioxide emissions, with transport, buildings, energy, and waste management, and accounting for the bulk of urban greenhouse gas emissions. So when we are talking about habitat, we are talking about cities. And in cities, we have the 70% of global carbon dioxide emissions. So we need to intervene, we need to take action in our cities. So that's why I'm celebrating these spaces where you in the past months were thinking about how can we make these cities, our cities, more livable and more and greener. And just to get into the end of my presentation, we think that youth we have the strength enough, the energy, the creativity, the desire to speak less and do more. That's why you were designing things, you were imagining our cities better, not just talking about that. And today, more than ever, we need to accelerate this sustainable urban action to mitigate and adapt to climate change. And I'm very happy that to know that you have already started to do it, thinking about how to make your cities more livable and more sustainable, and with actions at the local level, because I think that actions in the local level are the most important, because we feel it, we actually live in our local actions. And today you are being the change, and you are showing us the way to action, not just to blah, 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 as our Greta Thunberg said last day. So thank you very much, and I will give you the word again.
Thank you, Katrina, for such a nice presentation. And I think you already touched over some of the things that we definitely want to discuss later today. But then I will then give the word to Daniel. Daniel Boyko is a climate change policy specialist at Oxfam Novib, where he's part of the climate resilience and climate inequality subunits. So we're also very excited to have him here. So Daniel, the floor is yours.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much. Very happy to be here and very nice initiative. Very happy to have been invited to share some reflections with you on the current state of climate change, the current understanding of climate change in Oxfam Confederation and how we are linking it to inequality. I think a lot of these ideas can be very useful for your upcoming program. Very exciting. Can you see my screen and can you see it in full screen mode?
Yes, yes,
Thank
we
you very
can.
much. Okay, have 10 minutes. So as we know, this is planet Earth, and we all know that the planet is changing. Humans-induced climate change is bringing increasing disasters. We are living with those consequences today. We are seeing an increasing natural disasters. This is a picture from Nicaragua, where they are being hitting by unprecedented hurricanes, increasingly so. There has never been as hard hurricanes. There is unprecedented floods where there shouldn't be. There is drought at the same time, and we are seeing increasing pests. This has severe consequences for life on Earth. Human-caused climate change is unequivocal, and we are seeing the worst of it yet to come. Now, because of the severity of this, humanity has two strategies to fight climate change right now. The first one is we need to mitigate. We need to stop this crisis from happening. At the same time, we need to adapt to it because it is already happening. It is already a reality. So this is what we call mitigation and adaptation. In mitigation, we must talk about reducing greenhouse gas emissions, including carbon. We must talk about having a fair and just energy transition because this is a crisis of energy, of our energy sources, as much as other things, but that's very important. And we also have to protect nature and even restore it to be able to stop this crisis. But in adaptation, it's really critically important that we build resilience. And I think in the context of urban housing, this is something that must be really taken into account on how do we build better so that we're not simply reproducing the damages of the past in our building better. We need to talk about food security. There is a food crisis in the world that is caused by climate change, and this is extremely serious. We need to prepare for more disasters. We know that the world is going to change, even if the best case scenario of increase of 1.5 degrees, which is unlikely at this point, but even in that best case scenario, there will be an increase in disasters, in natural disasters in the world. And in the likely scenario of the 3-degree Celsius increase, the world is going to become a severely more chaotic, more unpredictable, more riskier world. And we're going to see a lot of migration. So our cities and our rural population need to be ready for that. Climate inequality causes. We are building this narrative because climate change and global inequality are inextricably linked. Inequality, I mean the extreme accumulation of wealth and power in the hands of very few corporations or people. And climate change, they have both the same source, and I can prove it to you. This is a graph made by Oxfam, that shows you that the richest 5% of people in the world, here with my cursor, you can see they have the biggest green graph, and the biggest green means that they have more emissions. Their lifestyle emits more greenhouse gases. And on the other side, you have the poorest, and you see their lifestyle have very little emissions. What causes emissions? Well, everything we do causes emissions. When you have to heat up your lunch today, you turn on the stove to create heat, that created emissions. When you build a house using cement to create that cement, you need emissions. The same goes for steel, the same goes for plastic, everything we do. But the richer you are, this graph proves that the richer you are, the more emissions. If you go by plane anywhere, if you have 10 houses and they're all enormous, your lifestyle is heavier on the environment. I'm gonna go faster. And the corporations, there's a handful of corporations that control all these sectors, and this is really bad because it concentrates their wealth, and it shows that, and it shows the concentration of wealth. Sorry, I'm speeding up because I know I have time. And what I wanted to take you is to this point, which is the inequality of climate change impact. Now, we know that the causes of climate change and global inequality are basically the same. This is the same economic system that is bringing us global inequality and is bringing us climate change. But what we also know is that climate change is exacerbating existing inequalities, and we can see that through an intersectionality lens, through an intersectionality view of humanity. Now, what does this mean? That not everybody is affected equally by these increasing disasters. First of all, those who contributed less to the crisis are being hit harder. This is true for countries. The countries that are poorer have a harder time dealing with the consequences of climate change, even though they were not the ones who created the crisis, because they have not created wealth as much as the others. And within those countries, we also see that some people are more exposed to these climate hazards. For example, because of proximity to nature, rural communities and indigenous peoples are more affected, are more vulnerable, and because of existing system of oppression, such as patriarchy, ageism, or other systems, we see that some people are more exposed and have greater vulnerability. We can say that climate change is exacerbating intersectional or multidimensional inequalities and bringing even bigger injustice to the world. For example, we say that there's no climate justice without gender justice. Why? Because women's exposure and vulnerability to climate hazards is exacerbated by, for example, the fact that they have less access to resources and less access to education. As an example, women tend to know less to read and write, and that creates a severe detriment in their capacity to predict, to be able to access information on how the weather is going to change, just to give an example. They have a disproportionate care and agricultural labor, and on top of this, the labor that is disproportionately given to women is unpaid. So they have less access to cash, and in preparing against climate change, that is very important. They have insecure land tenure. Customary laws in many countries prevent women from having secure land. So if you don't really own your land, how can you invest in it for the coming disasters that are coming? You might be dispossessed of your land. There is exclusion from natural resource management, and in the context of climate change, this is really important. They are stuck in the less profitable ends of the value chains. Profit, money making is typically traditionally men's activity, and how can you prepare for disasters when you don't have cash? And they are less free to migrate for different reasons, and this also creates greater vulnerability. The youth mentioned here, we know that climate change is an intergenerational injustice because the worst is yet to come, and the worst is going to be felt by who today are the youth. That is why they need to be included. There is economic inclusion that the youth are facing. We're seeing economic systems that are not inviting the youth to be part of them. When we envision this transition to a low carbon economy, I must make a carbon-free economy. I'm not sure if it's possible, but a low carbon economy, which is what as Oxfam we advocate for a transition, that has to include the youth, because it will be their economy. It will be the youth's economy. And we also have to really take into account the hindered capacity of, in certain contexts, of the youth to exercise their rights. There is unjust norms and misguided prejudice around sexual orientation, gender, indigeneity, disability, as others, that prevent many young people, especially with intersecting marginalized identities, from participating in public discourse. And in many countries, we see that there's increasingly hostile political environments, shrinking civic space, and which affect the youth across the world. Finally, indigenous peoples, I know this is from the urban side, but the rural side really matters for the urban. Where is the food produced that brings to the cities, for example? We see a lot of land commodities that are bringing a lot of risks to indigenous peoples. Their lives and their livelihoods are at risk. They have a way of life that is based on a close relationship with nature and the sustainable use of natural resources. And we're seeing massive disposition to indigenous communities for the creation of commodities that are used in cities, for example, in food, and their way of knowledge is highly threatened. This adds, and this year there's been a record number of environmental activists murdered, many of them who are indigenous people fighting for their land. So just to sum up, I will finish with this slide within my 10 minutes. So basically, just to sum up, this means that A, the accumulation of power and wealth in the hands of a few is driven by polluting the atmosphere, by bringing us climate change and bringing us environmental risk, meaning the global inequality is bringing us climate change. And at the same time, those living in poverty and those who are already disadvantaged are experiencing disproportionate exposure and vulnerability to climate change, bringing bigger injustice, meaning that climate change is exacerbating inequality. So inequality and climate, as we see, are two vicious circles, are two vicious byproducts of failed economic systems, which we must change, and we must lead the youth, or we must, sorry, because the youth can lead themselves, but we must empower the youth to be able and understand them in their full diversity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniel. That was very nice to hear. And I think you already touched up also in some of the things that came up also as well in the exploration lab. So so thank you so much for sharing. We will follow up with some questions, but before that, we would really like to give the floor to our last speaker for now, Insaf Ben Othman. Insaf is a Tunisian architect, urban development strategist and researcher, founder of Wekumen. Let me know if I'm pronouncing it right. Yeah. Her main research interests revolve around architecture and development, urban resilience, empowerment of communities through holistic, integrated projects and strategies. And she's also the initiator of Urban Catalyst, which is a project, and also a founder of Charneka Placemaking by Children and the Placemaking MENA platform. So I think, well, you will be able to share a little bit more, but thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you very much for giving me the floor today. So first, it will be an oral, presentation. So I prepared a text for especially, the young participants for this wonderful initiative. So hi, everyone. I'm very happy to be here with you today and to celebrate especially the World Habitat Day. Ecumen Studio, which is Ecumen Spaces for Dignity team, would like also to congrats all the participants and thank Butterfly Works for such amazing initiative. So it has been now a decade that Ecumen and its member works towards building an infrastructure of change, human, innovative, and cohesive one. Our goal is to initiate projects and design possibilities for change by local communities, where this change is driven by local contexts, especially, and local communities. And of course, the community assets and resources. We connect ideas, dreams, skills, knowledge, and resources to create synergies and collective intelligence for an inclusive world, dignified human habitat, and safe resilience communities. This is what we like to call building community by and through action. So at Ecumen Spaces for Dignity, we believe that the act of co-design and the act of co-build are keys to build societies, empower communities, and create space, place of coexistence. So to design possibilities for positive impact. And we work mainly in the MENA region and Africa. So to mark this International Day, celebrated around the world through action, I would like to give a message to the young generations who again proved their strong commitments to build a better, inclusive, healthy world for all. So we will live in a complex world where things are connected, interlinked. We cannot separate humanity from the natural world, not only because we are human beings, but because we depend on. Not seeing the complexity actually of how the world is engineered is quite dangerous. We have to invent and find tools to understand and see this complexity. That means that we have to train our minds of technocrats and experts to see, comprehend complexity and acts based on. So this means we have to rethink knowledge. Luckily, the last 2 decades, we witnessed the emergence of parallel practices around the world, uncharted ones, practices based on learning in, learning with, learning through the human territories to be more a catalyst for change. So these emerging practices, in particular in the Southern countries, are shaping our human territories pulled by actors from the civil society. And here I emphasize on the role of civil society. They have been active in urban development fields, contribution to the renewal of ways of thinking and taking part of urban development through tactiques, a combination of practices underpinning a vision of urban development based on the appropriation of the principles of sustainable development and based also on the right of citizens to participate in the making and management of their habitat. So what we call the urban project. So the urban strategy is based on knowledge exchange with other disciplines, bring innovation in the reading and writing of society and territories. This in vivo and in situ experimentation in spaces and places of our daily life with double openness to the city and to the world as a response to the need of learning by doing are essential for the future of our human habitat. So the co-design and the co-build workshop should be independent, embracing complexity and focused on the process rather than the result. And they should, what we also say, volatile, actually. They are acts of here and now, an open school of learners' territories through a cycle of organization, immersion, sedimentation, and restitution, leading to a series of changes and transformation within this complex, context. So these series of acts of transformation that we call are dear to be observed, but they are happening and they're essential ingredients to our knowledge, and all are mainly individuals leaving long-lasting traces on society. So mainly at last, the project becomes an open air school and participants, whether from the local communities or volunteers, are put to the test of the site, place and time in which know-how, knowledge and know-being are articulated. So opening these possibilities for exchange, change the way how we live, how we interact, how we inhabit with others. So the way how we see it from our practice, Ecumen, the impact was the rise of a collective unconscious, a change in the methods, whether within the actors themselves or the communities and different actors involved within the urban project. And this effect is no longer as a result, but also used as key element in the way how we strategize our actions. And I like to adapt the word from Pablo Sandra and Richard Sennett when they say designing disorder or rethinking disruption. And I quote here Richard Sennett when he said, infrastructure of disorder, it's the combining architecture, politics, urban planning, and activism in order to develop places that nurture rather than stifle, bring together rather than divide, remain open to change rather than rapidly stagnate. And our response in the context of an existing infrastructure, self-of-disorders like in the MENA region or Africa, known by their contested territories and inner-outer struggle and hegemonies of various forms of power, we tend to go toward dissemination, overspreading and contagion effect as solutions. So with small actions, micro-budget, in-kind contributions, actors from university, academia, local community, coupled with knowledge exchange, the so-called urban project became the learning process embracing change, uncertainty, and instability, and reinforcing the power to act. And it's a third place. So André Chauvet described the third places beautifully, and I quote, "These are places which are not dedicated by their nature, but by their ability to allow connection, to make possible the encounter of people quite simply, to the possibility of meeting other people, a community of resources where it is dedicated to the possibility of using open shared resources and in which there is a form of ephemeral that can correspond to new uses and in which I can be both a contributor of resources and receiver of resources." So mainly a community of resources generating a variety of forms of learnings. So to end this, my discourse, in a context where vulnerability is becoming universally a process, and where geographies of belongings are reshaped, we as civil society and actors, we have to be actively waiting for opportunities to negotiate these engines and build territory where collective decide together to learn, to act, and to innovate as a community. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Insaf. I think your description as geographies of belongings are reshaped is also what brings us here, because I think the invitation was also to have people from very different backgrounds, and especially geographically. And I think that already highlights a bit of how we also saw the youth involvement in this project. So thank you so much for your for sharing. Well, for now, what we want to do is we want to open the floor for questions. So if anyone has any questions for Danielle, Katrina, or Insaf, this is your moment. Otherwise, you can also put them on the chat. Yeah. You can also raise your hand if you have any question. And maybe in the meantime, I do have a question, because I think the three of you talk a little bit about, the importance of youth, especially on kind of reshaping all those public spaces. So there's like also a sense of how we create, or how the involvement of the youth is also reshaping that way that we understand sustainability. And I think it was quite interesting that you all mentioned a little bit about that building of resilience. So I want to know a little bit more how you feel, or what do you feel is the role of the youth, maybe, and in changing or reshaping that word. And I think you already kind of mentioned it in your interventions, but I think that that's also something that that brings us here, and I think the youth involved was also very excited about it.
So, and thank you, Andrea, about the questions. I think youth are catalyst, always for change and of change. Youth brings, more innovation, especially more energy, more collective, desire for change. It's quite a cycle, it's a natural cycle. Youth have this power actually of time, of dedication, of volunteering, of, very strong commitments as well. And I think that's always within all the agendas internationally that have been, collectively built. Youth everywhere we go are kind of the fuel to implement such, ideas and skills. So for me, we do believe a lot on youth, and we also believe on the fact that we also should empowering them, not leave them vulnerable, not leave them, isolated. I think the fact to connect them, to connect their ideas, to connect their energy, and to bring them also at a certain level that impossible, it's possible. It's not only, the youth themselves. So the youth needs also the older generations to give them also some quite of a hope that things can work. To say truly, the world where we live today, it's quite, very fragmented and very, it's a word of exceptions actually. And I think that we should at certain level bridge, give the infrastructure for this youth to take the action. And they are, like we said, it's an endless energy. It's our renewable energy. It's the youth. So I think it's very important to invest in them, very important to give them the knowledge they need, very important to trust them as well, to give them the push to take action and to implement, because this is something very, very important. So I hope that I answered your question about that, but youth is everything. I mean, in reality, nothing can happen without them.
Thank you so much, Insaf. I see a comment of Thais saying, we also need to make changes for the next generations to hear the youth and give them the space and resources to make this change. Daniel or Katrina, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I think I would agree definitely with everything that Insaf said. Like she said it so well. I think when I think about what is required now in the face of climate change and in this transition that we advocate for towards a low carbon economy. As I mentioned, it needs to include the youth. The youth have to be part of this, because the economy as we envision it will be theirs. It will be their economy. So if they don't believe in the principles that we bring, then nothing is going to change. And the other thing that I feel it's really important is that when we advocate for a low carbon economy, a new way of producing wealth and producing jobs, we need to speak to young people's reality. And we need to understand what are the concerns that young people are having in different contexts, because it won't be the same. And we need to speak to that. Otherwise, they will go somewhere else. What are the concerns, for example, of young people in Africa, as wide as that can be? I mentioned economic exclusion because jobs and sustaining families, young people are thrown into the world after education to systems that don't give them the employment that they are expecting, because they want to build families, because they want to build careers, and we need to support that. Our efforts to build resilient cities, to build resilient societies, have to speak to the needs of the youth and have to understand the diversity of the youth. Yeah, that's what I can say for now.
Thank you, Daniel. Katrina?
Yeah, and I agree completely with Daniel and Insaf. And from myself, I just want to add that an aspect of participation. So usually when we think about participation, we think that if we share things with others and we hear their voice and we let them have an opinion about the things that we are doing, we are leading things in a participatory way, but it's not like that. We believe that for having a real participation, we need to let the youth, in this case, design their own spaces based on their needs, based on the things that they think are important for them. Because that's when you start to think in the eyes of the youth people, you will start to understand things that you cannot understand because you are an adult, you are in another phase of your life. So that's really important if we want actually to have changes from the youth and from young people. We need to work with them in a real participatory way. And I think you are doing that in this workshop and in this last month, so that I'm really happy because of that. And actually, and another thing that I think is really important, I think, and it's my personal opinion, the more adults we get, the more discouraged we can be. Because with all our experiences that we adults have, we start to think, oh no, cannot be possible, because in the past I did that way and it didn't work. Because that when the younger you are, I think the more courage you have, because you are still believing in the future, you are still believing in you can do things, and that's a thing that we need to take advantage of. That's for me is really important too.
Thank you, Katrina. I see a raised hand, but before that, I'm going to read the comment of Jackie. Jackie says in the chat, nice understanding diversity to curb environmental change. And that's, I think, a very good take from the conversation. Yes, Thais?
Yeah, thanks, Andrea. Yeah, so this question is, well, for all three, but I think, well, specifically to start with Katrina, because of the PASA Youth network, I just wanted to also get your view on the differences and on like acting on a local level, but like PASA is also a global network. So how do you see this connection of, well, the youth are in different places in the world are engaging with their community and making a change on a local level, but at the same time connecting to this global network, and PASA is happening in so many different places of the world, which links a bit with our project here, which also had youth from different countries. Like, how do you see, in order to first to reach this change that we want to make, like how can we connect local practices, focusing on a global vision, like together, you know, so how to manage that from your experience also with FASA?
I think the one of the best things that we saw in our platform in working with different groups, FASA youth groups in around the world, is when they see, when I, as for instance, I'm here in Paraguay, I'm working at a local level, real local level, but I'm seeing that others are working almost the same way that I'm working, but the other side of the world, it's really strong. Actually, it's really strong because you can know that others are facing the same as you're facing, and they are achieving things that you can achieve soon in your short-term future. And that's a thing that I think it's really important to reinforce this global perspective and to give more power and more strength to the youth that are actually working at the local level. That's, for me, it's the best way to engage globally, because it's difficult to engage globally when you are working locally, and because of different reasons, because of timing, because of access to technology, because of access to language. But if you can just see the things that others are doing, and you know that they are experimenting the same things that you are, that's really powerful, I think.
Thank you, Katrina. If anyone else wants to add or maybe have a question. Otherwise, I think it's time for us to have a short break before the presentations of the youth, but we definitely invite everyone to please stay. It's yeah, we're 5 minutes late, but I think what we can do is to have a 10 minutes break. So meet back yeah, in the Netherlands, we are right now at 5:15, but depending on your times, in 10 minutes, so that we can continue with our presentations. And we really want to thank all the speakers. We hope you can also stay for the presentations to provide insights for the youth. Otherwise, thank you so much for being here. So yeah, we will see you in 10 minutes. Thank you. Hello, everyone. So we are already starting to come back from our break. Just let's give everyone just a minute to bring coffee and everything else. And I'll give the word to Irene.
Yes. So hi everyone, I'm Irene. I'm a design researcher and service designer at Butterfly Works. And thanks Andrea for giving me the word. And yeah, now it's my pleasure to actually introduce the groups and the teams that worked on this project that we introduced to our community. The idea is that we call to action youth influencers all over the world to work on this challenge of making their cities greener. And what we did is we taught them a design research method that we use, which my colleague Thais is going to explain to you later on. But the idea is that we explain to them our design thinking approach and method, and we guided them and supported them into a very short design thinking process, and in particular research, in which they investigated their own contexts, and then they ideated together with a group of people solutions to make their cities greener. I would like to ask you to share your screen, and I will time the presentation. So we have 4 groups from all over the world. So we have one group from India that is going to present first. We have one group from Kenya that is going to be second. One group from Nigeria, and then one group from Lebanon that is going to close. So we have 4 pitch presentations, and we asked to these teams that worked on designing greener city, we asked them to present in 5 minutes their solution to you. So they have been working for 3 weeks or almost 1 month, and these are the results. We're going to have 5 minutes presentation, and then we're going to have 5 minutes Q&A. And we invite everyone to ask some questions, and we invite the 3 experts to maybe give some feedback, and especially how to maybe make the solutions concrete, or what could be the next steps. So first we have a team from India. I'm not sure who is going to present. But we can go through the slides, and I don't know if it's Swarina that is going to present.
Yeah, so it's me and Sai who are going to present. I'm waiting for Sai to join. She's not even picking up the call, but yeah, I think I'll take you through the slides. So will you change the slides, or you want me to share my screen?
I think we can share the slides.
Yeah, just
okay.
Guide me into when you want me to move into the next slide, just in case.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
So, and also let me know when you start with the time.
Yes,
yeah, my screen has already been shared. So anytime you're ready, we're ready.
Okay.
3, 2, 1, go.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. So our team's name is Lost in Transition, transforming scenarios to connect the past with the present. And our team consists of Swarina, myself, Sai, and Shibani. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah. So we started with a question about how can we engage in collective awareness of historical spaces as a connected narrative in today's context, because we have a very big, we have history in this place, but we wanted to, it's neglected in current scenario. So we wanted to think of a solution, how we can have it, how we can have it for the present. Next slide. Yeah, so we are team from India. Our hometown's name is Karad, which is a very small town in the western part of India. Slide. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is the top view of our town, and as you see, there are two rivers coming together and diverting in 90 degrees. And the target area which we chose for ourselves was exactly near that confluence, and that area is a man-made hill, small type of hill, which we are targeting. Slide. Yeah, so next slide. Okay, so as I said, it's a small hill. In one slide behind, please. Oh, it's difficult for me to. Sorry. So yeah, as you see here, it's this is the area which we have decided, which has 4 historic places. Next slide. Next slide, please.
I think the screen is a little bit detained, but it's she's giving the next slide.
Yeah, it's difficult for me to manage it without the screen control and speaking with. Yeah. Anyways, so it's a hill in the middle of the city, and it has only one entry point which can be accessed by vehicles, and one other entry point which is a pedestrian route. And near the entry, you see one temple here, which is very historic, and one square which is in the center of the hill. Next slide, please. Yeah, and this is the stepwell with from 100th century, like very old stepwell, which is currently, as you see, which is not preserved, and there are many private landowners and encroachments done around it. So there's no breathing space for it, and it also has a very great view of the river. Next slide. Yeah, and this is one other temple with a lot of historic importance. Yeah, next. And it also acts like a meeting point for people. And these are the bastions around. In previous time, this was a what do you say, place from where the whole city was managed, because of, and these are the bastions which are currently encroached, neglected, and there is lots of weed grown around it. Next slide. And this is the memorial. So he was the first chief minister of our state. So this is his memorial, which is exactly near the river, which you can see here. Next slide. Yeah. So in together, this was a few of our observations where you see that there are kids, age groups around. There are small businesses which are flourishing due to the history, but they are completely neglected and neglected in current scenario. Yeah. Next slide, please. I think Sai will take forward from here.
Okay, so like Swarina explained about, the insights and how the place is, after studying and visiting the place and doing a detailed study of and mapping down various observations, we had an overview of the place and understood that how important is the place for us. Okay, and also in terms of we understood the different stakeholders, their roles and all of that in making this place important. So we had categorized it into various categories like the stakeholder engagement, narratives, and how we could reclaim and reuse the space, and how the movement patterns are, and what could be the solutions to these issues that are there. Okay, next. Next slide. Yeah. So after doing a study of these, we had a few proposals in mind where we would be catering to the first question that we had come up with, and the proposal would be in a 3-part stage, where One would be the immediate actions that could be taken for the area. The other one would be a short-term goal, and the third one would be in the longer run or a long-term one. So in the short term or the immediate one, it would be more of creating these movement loops and like cycle path, walkways and walking paths, and also conducting horse walks through, which would also have some oral audio narratives. In the short term, it would be more of community based activities, and in the longer run, it would be more of light events like light and sound shows, or having a museum that could be proposed in the vicinity. Okay, next slide. So this was a stakeholder mapping that we had done, and just to understand the relationship between different agencies that are different stakeholders that are involved, and the impact each one of them has on the other one, and how all of them together have an overall impact or influence on the space. Next. So moving to how our solution is relevant to through the problem, I think Shibani will take it forward.
Yeah, so we envision that the 3 scenarios designed with a people-centric approach will act as a catalyst to activate and charge the space, to develop a sense of ownership and belonging among the residents of the neighborhood and the city at large. So we see that the 3 scenarios will, complement each other. So be it like what we can do now to short term and long term will complement each other to build that community and have more stronger, deep-rooted ties, which we thought were missing through our observations and site visits. Next. Yeah, so this was just like a diagrammatic timeline of our practice so far, and how we've gone through based on the butterfly workshop, and then how we plan to execute these 3 stages further. Yeah, and I think that's all from the 3 of us for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all the 3 of you. It's a very thorough presentation. I think you covered a lot of aspects. It was also very nice to see all the pictures of the location. So it was really like if we were there with you. I would like to open the floor to questions, but also to feedback. And yeah, I just want also to remind you that they had quite a short time to do this project, and all different level of experience. So I think, yeah, also the stakeholder map you did, the roadmap with all the different timelines and different scenarios is yeah, very impressive work. So yeah, congrats from me and Thais. Also, we saw all the process. So great to see in the end how everything came together. So I would like to ask if any one of you has any question. You can drop them in the chat or just unmute yourself.
Hi, can I come up with a question?
Sure.
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for this presentation. My name is Bernarda Coelho and I'm co-founder of Huasi Pichanga, which is a collective that does urban consultancy, and actually in those very, more or less the same aspects. We focus now in child-friendly cities, and that involves a lot of youth and also caretakers. So it's very interesting, and I'm very glad to see that all these initiatives are also happening around the world. Because our experience is mostly in Latin America, so congratulations for that. Secondly, I have one question and then a suggestion maybe to your project. So in this month that you had the chance to go around, did you manage to talk to locals and understand the perception of their relationship also with local authorities, and how open or how restricted they are to engage in this kind of activities? Because at some point, if the idea is to push the co-creation with them, I don't know to what extent the local authorities are also involved, or are you planning on having this intervention from a pure community approach, let's say?
Yeah, so should I answer? Sorry, yeah.
Yes.
So yes, so we did go. I mean, I was working offline, but Swarina and Sai did visit the sites. So I think about quite a few times, and they did get to interact with a lot of residents individually and in smaller groups. And the thing is that the site which we are focusing on, because it's an historically it's a historical site, it comes under an agency called the Archaeological Survey of India. And because of whose guidelines, the residents are not able to do any, refresh. I mean, they're not able to renovate their own houses without, a rigorous process or permission, which takes long. So there is resentment that the residents have for these agencies. But I think somewhere what we are trying to do is to be that in between, group who is going to try and mitigate the gap that's there between the residents and the Archaeological Survey of India.
Yeah.
In fact, when we were interviewing people, they said, okay, you are making this as a non-development, like you are preserving this place, but in return, like the reason they are doing it was because of the well, but you're just preserving it and you're not working upon how you can develop the well. You are just keeping it as it is. So I think we answered that question. Okay, now you have done this, you have put this restriction. Now, how can we use this as an advantage for us?
Yeah, exactly. And you talked a lot about collective awareness, and that's and the stakeholder mapping and stuff. And it occurs to me, maybe it is worth mapping, like, I don't know, 3-4 more of these kind of hubs where you can basically show that there is not only this space in the city, you have more, I hope you have more, I don't know how it is, but just to map these different places and present this as a pilot project for a local strategy, also to try to engage local authorities from their perspective and interests, like also politically speaking, because sometimes that's also what they look at for, but also how you can connect these different communities and try to find what are the similarities among the communities living around these different areas in the city. So you can not only propose this project and that's it, but already have a plan for possible scale up if this one works. And so in that regard, you can also engage more residents and stakeholders. Maybe that occurs to me. I hope it's helpful.
No, absolutely. I think we, all three of us, if I may speak for them, we agree with what you're saying. And, because of the given time frame, the short time span that we have had and the opportunity to go on site and, understand the site first, we've not yet had the opportunity to connect with politicians, local politicians and local authority. And that's something which is on our agenda for the next step.
And also because if at some point you're looking not only for politicians or local authorities, of course, from there will come the permits and stuff, but also if you're presenting these projects for funding and to move it forward, then people are mostly interested or usually interested on how you can scale these projects. Right. So it's nice if you can also show them that part.
Yeah, definitely. we'll keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. It's also indeed feedback on how to bring your project forward are very, very welcomed and very much invited. I think Inzaf would like to ask a question. Would you like to mute to unmute yourself and to ask a question to the team?
Hi, hello. So my question is basically about the collective memory and this heritage site. If you thought about, to develop a link between both of them, in a way to create, reconnection to the site, to engage more the locals towards it, because most of the cases in these sites, sometimes people doesn't really feel the connection to it. And, seeing it in a positive way, maybe it will be a leading way to create your paths, your full strategy of co-designing with the locals, at the same time playing on branding the site in a way to negotiate with the governments, and authorities, to find the middle, ground between the locals themselves, adding their collective memory to it, building this narrative, and then after that, of course, revalue the whole lands in a way, we know the incentives of the local authorities. So my question was mainly this, if you are really seeing this as a way to build up your strategy to develop this project. Thank you.
Yeah. There's so many things that I want to say right now. But I think to begin with, I think that's where we began, like how do we connect these historical places and make it more relevant in today's times, and that's been like a very pivotal question throughout our research. And like even today when we've been thinking about proposals, so, we are, trying to still develop our ideas and proposals, as to how can we make these sites more relevant for people who are staying in that area and for the city at large, because it's a very small town and, it's not just the neighborhood, but this city, the residents of the Karad city need to have that sense of ownership and belonging is what we feel. And we are like thinking of like when we spoke about the walk or the horse walk or the cycling path, we are thinking of like, having some audio devices or, maybe it can be on Spotify and people can just plug in their earphones and, as they cycle through the site, they'll like, listen to the narratives that the local people who are staying there will be narrating. Or we're planning to have like treasure hunts for the residents in that neighborhood so that, they revisit these spaces again with a different perspective. So we're planning these small things to engage the community. And that's like the first now part of the scenario. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but
Yes, perfect. This exactly that. And I know, I understand that you are at the beginning of it. It's also, just my recommendation would be to look how you will be able to build a participatory branding actually of local heritage site through rewriting collective narratives. And I think this is through the paths, through the actions, through the walks, through the different intervention you can make. Will build up actually at the same time your strategy based on actions. And I think this is how it can, find an umbrella under which all these different actors, whether they are involved now or after, within your site. So thank you very much.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep that in mind as we go ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Inzaf, for your question and feedback. I think it's very good that we can also hear the feedback of the experts, let's say. Because we don't have so much time, I would go to the next group. But if you have any question for this team, you can drop it in the chat and Swarina or Sayi or Shibani will answer. We're gonna have a way to be connected also after the event. So no worries, there is gonna be a way. But if you have any question for them, just drop them in the chat. and they can answer in the chat. Now we have the team from Kenya. So I don't know who is going to present. And if you would like us to share your slides, or if you would like to do it by yourself. I don't know if it's Jackie.
Hi, everybody. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we do.
It's raining, so I have a rainy background on my side. Don't worry.
No, we hear you quite well.
Okay, you can share my slide. So hi, everybody. My name is Jackie Kimani. I'm from Kenya, similarly to the ladies who are here. So Diana, Yvette, and Nasim could not join us, but with me, I have Anne, who will be listening in as well as answering questions. So the picture you guys can see are our bus stages, or what we call here in Nairobi or Kenya matatus. And for every 2 businesses that are springing up in these stages, this is what happens, because our cities or the stages are not designed to be able to hold such kind of businesses. A lot of trash ends up on the stages. So on my far right, which you guys can all see, is a new constructed road, but then you can all see the garbage that is happening there. And from the far left, that's an image from Google on how one of the biggest, or one of the road stages that is starting to become very detrimental. And then next to it, we have the Young Task group. So these are the young groups of people who are trying to see if they can plant trees around the stages, if they can plant kale around these areas so that they can be repurposed for everybody else. In the next slide, we discovered that as each and every businesses are springing up, they do not have better ways to make their area, number 1, safe, number 2, free from disease, and even number 3, where people can engage as before. Because as you're waiting for a matatu to take you to the next stage, sometimes because of whatever matatu you want to sit on, you have to wait a little bit. So as people are waiting, we wanted to see if we can create engaging conversations around the environment. And the reason why this needs to be solved now for us is that every single day or morning, you have at least 1 million public commuters who are accessing these stages. And next to these stages, there are people who are cooking or are preparing very delicious meals, and you want to also indulge yourself and eat. But with the dumping sites around them, they're posing a lot of health issues and concerns. So the next time you want to stand next to a matatu stage to order something, you are, will I go back home sick, or will I go back home with a nutritious body? And our solution initially was to create engaging conversations or start conversations with all these 1 million commuters who are using these stages. And we wanted them to rethink the way they interact with what they call garbage. So with the aid of graffitis and creative materials that you can see on the bottom right, I don't see if the slides are moving, but on my side, I have the solution. So with creative or engaging materials like the one we have on the far right that says Corona is real, we are seeing that people are using it, and they are seeing that and they want to change the way they think around the environments they're in. Also using creative, educative board games. So for instance, you can have flashcards where you ask somebody, what are the materials that you can be able to recycle in your home? When you create this conversation with them, they also take them to their families. And the top one is an engaging game. For instance, next year we are going to have our elections, and we can use it to start conversation and see how people are dumping the different things they're carrying in their bags or even their homes. The next slide is a green park bus terminus. This is one of the solutions that we found around the city. And the sad news is that this terminus has only been used once ever since it was constructed. And with more of these springing up, we are seeing ways that maybe our city is going to be safer and much cleaner. How are we bringing this idea to life? Number one, with groups like Young Tasks, we want them to engage with the public because they see them every day. Some of them even go buy kills to where they are. So using these community groups, we want them to continue educating the public. And we want to also want the community to engage. And one of the engagement will be like the beams and working with the flashcards. And the last solution is, how do we bring the younger generation into this? And the only way we can do that is going to places and areas and communities where they engage a lot. And to finish up, we have a quote from Wangari Maathai. She said that the generation that destroys the environment is not that the generation that pays the price. And that is the problem happening around us. Thank you so much for listening. That is us.
Yes, sorry, I was muted. Yeah, thank you very much. It was very clear presentation, also very nice to see the pictures. Very nice also to see that you thought this 3 steps approach to your solution. Personally, I find this project very interesting and yeah, engaging also. I would like to open the floor for questions, or any feedback is also welcomed. So you can unmute yourself or just drop it in the chat. Meanwhile, we have quite some comments in the chat complimenting the great work and also the very clear presentation. Do we have any question from the audience yet? If not, I always have questions, so I can ask one question. So I would like to hear a bit how the process was. So maybe it would be interesting to hear maybe one challenge that you encountered during the process. And just for the audience, during the process, we asked the teams to go in the site and take pictures and interview people there. And sort of map the site. So maybe it would be nice to hear one challenge that you encountered in the process, and maybe one thing that went very well. So one challenge and one success.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the question. One challenge that we encountered is we had about, initially when we were brainstorming, we had about 6 challenges that we could delve into. So that means that we have a lot of potential for change around the community, and all of them were very broad. So that was the biggest challenge that we had, and all of them were very beneficial to the community, and all of them had a lot of potential. So the number of ideas we had was one of the biggest challenge. One of the greatest impacts, if I can say, or even one good thing that happened is when we were going around talking to, for instance, matatu drivers and the conductors, they had a lot to share, and all of them were just trying to see, how can I make money from what you guys are trying to do? So just as Daniel has said, that a lot of youth want to find engaging ways they can find money or bring money to their pockets, but then whatever issues happen on the other side, they are not ready to mitigate them. So that was one of the things, especially when we were talking about paid board games as one of the solutions, they were really eager. But then when we told them that sometimes you will use paper and it will end up on the roads, then it made them rethink differently.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks so much. I think it's always nice to see also not only the outcomes, but also the process, to have a bit of yeah, insights on how did it go. So thanks, Jackie, for sharing. I see that Thais has her hand raised.
Yeah, thanks, Eleni. Really great presentation, Jackie. This is super interesting. Yeah, I'm also curious because I see, of course, that the project is really based also on changing the behavior, right? Changing the behavior of people throwing garbage and throwing trash. But you also mentioned in the beginning of your presentation that the youth would like to also make use of the space to grow kale, or like repurpose the space into food production or leisure spaces, or things, spaces that contribute to their well-being. So how would you maybe see in the future potential to kind of engaging with the youth into activities to create these spaces themselves, or maybe connecting with other stakeholders that could be like joint forces into just generating these community-based activities throughout the city?
Thanks for the question, guys. If I can reiterate, you're asking how can we engage external stakeholders, especially the youth, into this. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know if most of you know the story about the biggest slum in Kenya, which is Kibera. So one of the greatest forces that that community has is how so many organizations are springing up, and each of these organizations are finding ways to be relevant. And when you think about the environment, any conversation you start around it is going to be very, very relevant. And linking them with like the Green Belt movement, which is very big in Kenya, and ensuring that at least a person is able to plant a tree that can also be taken to schools for the younger generation. Those are some of the potential ways we are seeing organizations and even the youths getting involved.
Thank you. I see Bernarda has a hand raised, so you can unmute yourself and ask it, or I don't know, maybe it's a question.
Thank you, Irene. And thank you for the presentation. It was a very nice one and very clear. More than a question, because I think you already told us a lot about the process. It's maybe an idea just to have like these activations for one day or something, where you transform the place together with youth, because you also mentioned that whenever youth get involved there, and I completely believe on that, they go home and then they tell their families like this happened, or that's how it, and then their families also start getting involved or engaged, or at least they get to think about things that can be done differently. So maybe with all these activities, like or the graffitis or so, also create an activity wherein you transform the place for one day, like you just bring plants or something, and you just give one of the bus stops a whole different setting for one day, and then you map also how people react, what are their like thoughts about it, and how likely it is for them to get involved, instead of already telling them how to get involved, but rather just creating that space so they come up with some ideas as well. Maybe that will help.
Oh, nice. That is a good one. Spreading positivity through this lifting Matata stage. Nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bernarda, for your intervention. And we have one recommendation in the chat from Inzap, so I'm going to read it out loud. So the recommendation is that because your project is about community nodes, mobility and solid waste management, I think you can create in the node a knowledge information hub about solid waste management and use it as a community key place. I don't know if Jackie or someone else from the group want to react to this. Otherwise, I will go to the next group, as we are slightly late on the schedule. If you have any question, or I don't know if Jackie, you want to wrap it up, you can drop your comments in the chat. And I would like to invite the next team to do their pitch. We have Festus here. I will share my screen, and yeah, Festus will walk us over their presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Festus Adun. I'm the team lead from Nigeria, and I have Destiny Osemige, Courage Inetume, Flavor Alagba, and Joy Bumbo. And unfortunately, they are not here right now. So actually, we are working on. We've noticed that the rate of death from malaria in Africa is on the high, and this can be traced back to the type of environment that we normally keep in this part of the world, thereby making an avenue for mosquitoes to breed on stagnant waters and all the rest. So when we actually had an idea of working or researching for the World Habitat Day, we actually talked about places where commuters normally go through on a daily basis, and what really came to our mind was a car park. And we visited some areas. We take a case study from university and also the city center. So in the course of our research, we discovered that most of these parks are not being maintained, and also the ecosystem is being destroyed with the emission from cars and buses and all the rest. So we thought about a mitigation process, and what came to our mind also was about using planting grasses and trees in all these parks. So we during the course of our research, we talked to individuals in the car parks, we talked to students for those areas that we took from the university campuses, and we discovered that trees should be planted in these areas to reduce the rate of carbon emissions from cars, and also the footpaths that will be made that should be promptly obeyed, and grasses and trees will help also to reduce the air pollution that we normally see in all those places. So we set out to work, and me and my team, we tried to interview some people. So during the course of this program, there was a kind of little challenges, as it became mandatory that everybody had to be vaccinated. If you're not vaccinated, you will not be able to access most of this environment. So it kind of limited and the pace at which our research was being done. So the good part about our research or our project is that it cuts across every persons, from the market woman that uses the park when she's going to the market, to the student that uses the park when he's going to the school, to the office people. So it was really a project that cut across every stakeholders. And as a result of this, we tend to collaborate with the government through the Ministry of Environment and that of Culture and Tourism, because even the university center will tend to be working with more or less a government institution, and most of these car parks right here in our country are being controlled by the government. So we tend to collaborate with these people, and but because of the vaccination process that's actually going on, there was really a reduced rate for us to be able to assess all these people, because it's more or less that when you are not vaccinated, when you don't have your vaccine card, you cannot really address those parts. So that's what that. So the good part about this our project is that it can easily be carried out with partnership with as anyone or as individual organization that tend to partner with us, as in some of these projects have easily been carried out in university centers and some city centers and all of that. So it's really a great project that helps to make the environment greener if we really try to follow the procedure that have been recommended and making sure it's actualized as soon as possible. So that's it for now. So some of the features of the environment was actually in our slide, but we could not add it to this our slide for, I don't know if it can be shared on the screen for them to see some of the problem we are trying to correct. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Festus. Here we have some pictures.
Yeah. This is one of the park at the city center. As you can see, there is no grasses there, causing stagnant water by the side, and I can tell you that not fewer than not fewer than thousands of people go through the same park every day. Where the park is kind of scanty like this because of the new regulation about no vaccination, no access. So you can see most of these places are just, they are stagnant waters and waste are being deposited anyhow. So we tend to when trees are planted in this place and grasses are planted with good work paths to actually reduce the rate of stagnant water, controls erosion, and reduces air pollution and all of that. So the kind of easy project, but actually saves a lot of life, because right here in Nigeria, they'll tell you before the advent of coronavirus, every minute five people dies of malaria right here in Africa. So is a project that really will help in correcting most of those things, and it would be nice to partner with everyone here to actually this is all part of this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Festus. Thanks for your presentation, it was very clear. And also, yeah, what I wanted to add is that what I like about the different presentations that we're seeing is that there is not only one way to see green cities and to see what green is. So what I really like is that all the different groups are tackling different aspects of what a green city is. So it's also good to have a view and a perspective on different parts of the world and on different meaning of green cities. So I see that Andrea has a question. So would you like to unmute yourself?
Thank you. Well, thank you so much to this group. It was very interesting presentation. I think that something that was very remarkable is that you're talking a lot about partnership building, and especially how you build partnership with the government or with the public institutions. So I found that I think that it's also a very interesting way to see it, because especially in terms of not only public funding, but enjoying the public spaces and how to create more community led spaces. I think it's a very intelligent approach. I think something that you could probably work on is how to connect some of the key challenges that you see with the specific ways in which the social policy can respond, because maybe sometimes it's harder for policy makers to see the connection with the specific thematic. So you talk a lot about pollution, you talk about like public enjoyment of public spaces. So maybe I think what you can do is kind of do like a tree of key issues that you have identified, that I think you're already there, and connected with the specific ways in which you could ask the public institutions to support, so that then you can really map out which are the key stakeholders that develop. Because I think beyond environment, you're also talking about other issues, and I think in this idea of placemaking, and especially when we see that there's not that much public funding, it's also very smart to kind of look for funding in several organizations and see how you can how can you address the same issue in different ways. So I think that a map of those options and those possible solutions or possible ways, I think that could be very helpful to understand the overall like the overall map.
Yes, thank you very much. That's noted.
Thanks, Andrea. I think it's indeed very good advice to bring this project forward. Maybe we can have space for the last question, so drop it in the chat or raise your hand. Meanwhile, I'm going to read some comments that are appearing in the chat. So Thais said that it's a very interesting proposal to improve parks and public spaces and to provide areas of leisure for the community. Jackie is congratulating for the good presentation, Festus. And then INSAF is sharing that involving the community and civil society is very important to solve the question of maintenance and the lack of resources. And she's asking if you have community councils.
Yes, we have community council, but right now the election hasn't been held since the last council, since they finished their tenure due to the COVID-19. So election hasn't been held. So it's just the caretaker committee that's in charge of it right now.
Thanks, nice to know. And what INSAF is proposing is, following Andrea's recommendation of mapping different issues, doing some backlisting and actors mapping is essential. We have also a toolbox in which we have some tools that might be useful for mapping problems and actors. So we invite you all to take a look at it in our toolbox, Butterfly toolbox that you find online. And INSAF is commenting that the committee is good to involve. It's good to involve the committees of the from the beginning of the project. Thanks a lot for all the comments and all the questions. If you have others, please drop them in the chat and Festus will answer, or you can stay connected also after this event. We'll tell you how in shortly. We have the last team presenting, team from Lebanon. So we have Ahmad, I think, presenting. I will share my screen if that's okay with you while you present.
Yes, I will present today. Yes. Hello, my name is Ahmed Al-Khujai.
Sorry, Ahmad, we hear you a bit, you're breaking off a bit.
And so I'm only at the beginning will give you the content of the presentation. Beginning will give you the content of
We don't hear you, Ahmad, now. Before we heard you a bit. Can you try again? Now let's see if we hear you a bit better.
Sorry, I have a. You can hear me?
Yes, now maybe a bit better.
Okay. The content is we begin with ourselves, or the town, or my town, or our town, ourselves, the team, steps. Okay. Ourselves is the biggest town in Lebanon. It's about 140 kilometers from the capital Beirut. Located in the among the mountain as at an altitude of 1,040 meters. Okay, it contains 50,000 residents and approximately 150,000 Syrian refugees. The main source of livelihood is crushers and cherry orchard. It's famous from or for ornamental stone and cherry. It's the town. We can next slide. The team, Ahmad or Ahmed Al-Khujai or me.
Sorry, Ahmad, you're breaking up a bit.
On the project, Ahmed Al-Khujai, me, lessons in physics.
Now we could follow until now, and then when you started talking about the team, we lost you a bit. Maybe try again.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
now we hear you better. Yes.
It's the animation here. You should
I don't know why it's not
touch
playing.
Ahmed. Okay.
Let's see here.
Animations. There is animations. And can I share the screen from?
If you can,
my
yes,
laptop?
that would be
Yes.
nice. Yeah, you
Yes.
should be
Okay.
able to. Then I will just let you share your screen.
Okay. Okay. 1 minute. Share. It's clear for you.
We see that you have started the screen sharing, but we don't really see it yet. Yes, now we do.
Yes,
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Then Ahmad, or me, lesson in physics, master in education, volunteer, and 20 years old. Abdul Karim, lesson in physics,
We don't hear you anymore.
21 Malik Rombe, lessons in engineering, volunteer 24 years old. Okay, the steps the steps that the team followed during its research. One, the first step, a tour in the town to take a field look at the reality of the problems that the town suffers from and take some pictures. I can't show the pictures today because it's another device. The picture, I use another device to take the picture and can't present today.
No worries, that's not a problem.
Stage, about the daily problems they suffer from. We discuss with the people or the the member from the society about the day life that the people suffer from. Main point like waste, car parking, infrastructure, etc. The step 4 or the first step, publishing a digital questionnaire to assess the reality of the problem collected in the third stage to actually determine the problem or the main problem we suffer from in ourselves. And step 5, analyzing the result and proposing appropriate solution. We're still in the step 5, actually. The problems, we have problems in road and sidewalks, waste, car parking, infrastructure, arrangement of neighborhoods and houses. So all of the problems that we mentioned are that only indication of the basic problem that the result of the survey began to show, which is the main problem is the total absence of any aspect or touch of civil organization, the problem we suffer from in ourselves, actually. As for the solution, we are in the analysis stage or step. but it has become almost certain that the problem is the absence of the civil organization. So we will start building an engineering team to develop a complete and comprehensive plan to organize the town. We will start the project in the road for the first step. We apply the organization or the civil organization in one road, and and copy paste the model in another road and another place in the town. That our solution included, of course, and communicated with the concert authorities and donors to write the foundation stone at least as soon as possible. Okay, for the next step we will do the first analyzing the result of the questionnaire after the complement of data collection. Second, communicate with the stakeholder and prepare for constructing the team of engineering. Of course, work with the engineering team to establish a civilized model that fits compelling environment. And the fourth step, trying to twin with the town and the municipalities of foreign countries within the new model. So we propose the idea of twinning with another town or another municipalities in our model. We will work it to create a greener road, greener societies, greener town, and biggest idea or biggest model or biggest project. And that's all. If any questions,
Thank you, Ahmad. Your voice was breaking up a bit, but I think with the help of the slides, everyone should have managed to follow. So thank you a lot for your presentation. It was very nice also to see how you planned the different steps, one after the other. I would like to open the floor for some questions, if there are any.
I have just one thing to say. So Nabila is with us, and she just texted me that she would like to have her presentation. She's ready to present. So
okay, that's very nice. So yeah. I think Nabila, after some question, we can go with you. I see that Andrea has her hand raised.
Yeah, I wanted to thank Atma for the presentation. I think it was a very nice take on the challenge. I think that we quite often, forget the importance of civil society in kind of a sparking change, and that is like a key ingredient actually of development. So I think it was quite, it was very nice to see it here. I think that for my side, I think that my recommendation, because I feel that you are already, you quite understand the challenge. But I also think that when you start creating, when you're planning to create or to spark a social movement or a civil organization or civil society organization that kind of sparks changes in the public sector, is always key to really state the main values and the main mission of the organization. So I think that there is a lot of and I think that's where you're gonna start also meeting the stakeholders and other community members. But I think that is key in really creating or really seeing how will you work towards that change that you want to see. And I think that as long as you can write it down and can explain it to others in a way that is easy to communicate and share, it would actually be more accessible also for the public service. And I say this because I'm also I study social policy, and I think that sometimes it's very hard to transform the needs of the society towards public policy, and it's because maybe sometimes we lose that communication into what is needed and how we perceive the problem. So I think it's also always nice to really state the values, the needs, and how through that community organization you will spark, or how you want to see the change, the changes to be done, and how like what is that vision, and then really talk about how you communicate that with possible stakeholders and also with the public and private sector. But very nice presentation, and thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Andrea. Oh, sorry. Do you want to react, Ahmad? Andrea's comments?
No, just I to say thank you for Andrea.
Okay, then I will read out loud the comment of Insaf in the chat. So she's saying, thank you. As I did with the other groups, your project is about building community and sense of civic engagement. Placemaking is one of the methods. You should build from the bottom through action before getting support. It needs time, needs a kick of action based on sense of solidarity and a sense of the common. And the first step is to build trust. And maybe on this, another feedback that might be helpful is to always indeed try to engage the community, both in the understanding what really are their needs and how they would like to have them solved, and in really create solution with them, and in really engaging them in the solution, because then we know that the solutions will be would really address their needs, and also they will have ownership over the solutions created. So I think involving the community is always a good way and a good approach to make cities greener, at least in my opinion. I would like to open the floor for the last question, if there is one. Otherwise, I would like to go I would like to give the word to Nabila. I don't know if you have a presentation and if you would like to share the screen, Nabila. If yes, the host needs to make Nabila co-host so she can share her screen. And I think we're gonna be 10 minutes late, so I would like you to invite you to stay for 10 minutes more. If you can't, that's also okay. But now I will leave the floor to Nabila to present her project, their project. You're muted, Nabila, if you're speaking. We don't hear you. We see your screen, but we don't hear you because you're muted. So I think that might be.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we do hear you. And we also see your screen.
Yeah. Okay, great. Actually, the place is in Beirut city. The name it's in Abu Shakir Square. Okay. Okay, this is Beirut city, and this is the square. It's actually in a very crowded place in Beirut city. Crowded with the people, with the buildings, and a lot of cars. Just across this square. The name is Abu Shakir Square. And if we make a more focusing in this square, we can see the way that the car is just crossing this square exactly. From all the roads, it's all surrounded with the roads just on this square actually. And we can see an elementary school right here, the blue color, and just beside it, parking, a public parking. And just beside it, adjacent to it, it's the firefighting station. Just down, we can see the football playground. So all this area is so crowded, and we can notice the height of the buildings, all of it from, let's say, from 10, 12 floors and something like this. So it's so crowded, this place. This is the square. This is the way that the car is just, one of them are two ways, and this is one way. And now my work is just on the square, and this is the square actually. I did, I took a panorama and for all the square, as we see how the way the car just is mixed, all of it mixed, all the ways, and as we noticed, the square in the middle, it's surrounded with a fence. Nobody can allow anybody to come inside. Only few trees in the middle. And we can see the elementary school right there. When the children come in the morning, or at 2 o'clock, let's say, when they go out, it's crowded with small children, with the cars, and it's all, let's say, mixed, and or this way. We can see here, this is the square that we have. It have a lot of problems. Now we can see this is the elementary school here, and we can see here just the elementary school, and just beside it we can find the public parking, which the car go down. It's underground. Go down and coming out, and the children now there isn't, we don't have a school now, so we cannot see the children how they go inside the school and go outside the school adjacent to the parking. This is a big problem for them actually. And just beside all those, we have the trash, which it made a very bad environment in this area actually. And at the same road, just in the same road, near the entrance, we can find the fire station, the firefighting station. You know, when they're rushing, they go inside and go in and go out. It's beside the children. It's all mixed actually. This area, it needs a lot of work to have a good environment and good. I mean, we can consider this square as a parking instead of a green open public space with a crossing roads. The small middle, as I said, in the green space, is surrounded with a fence, this allowing the public to get in. At the same street, as we said before, okay, we can find the elementary school, the main entrance with the public underground parking, just as adjacent to firefighting station, and also adjacent to the trash containers. This is a very big problem. Just the trash is right here in the same road. The trash containers is giving ruthless smell and unpleasant image to the surrounding environment actually. Also the big problem, the firefighting station position, it's surrounded with narrow streets, which are a problem and hard circulation movement in these roads. And the sound of the cars is loud, noisy, inconvenient for all the buildings and the residential buildings, because all it's full of residential. Well, actually, for the next step solution that we are looking forward, recovering the space with greenery for refreshing the environment. We should work to improve the public square to make it progressing in all features actually, to get better recovering. Trying to find a solution for the negative points that we mentioned actually, the school, the entrance and location of the firefighting station. We have to study the landscape for the square with the surrounding roads and the pedestrian. They have a problem with the pedestrian. We have to review the purpose of the meaning of the public assembly gathering space. It should be gathering for the people, not in this way actually. We have to search about the function. We have to add for the square to be appropriate and convenient for the neighborhood actually. And that's all what I have for the square that I saw. It have a lot of problem, and we hope to work on it to be more recover a more environment space for all the neighborhood. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Nabila. I would like to open the floor for any questions that might have came up. Otherwise, I also have one. So thanks for your presentation. I think it's a very, very clear and thorough overview of all the problems that are in this area. So it's nice also to see how different challenges and different problems come together. And I think that makes it even more challenging. So you're also proposing this solution of making it more a place where people can interact and make it greener. But I wanted to know if you managed to get to the stage of, so how are you going to do it? So is it, for example, I don't know, engaging with the local municipality? Is it to have a more grassroots initiative? Do you already have some more tangible solutions in mind? So I wanted to know whether you also thought about about this.
Yes, actually, because at the meantime, actually, we have the government had a big problems, economic problems, and they are not looking at the environment as a very important issue, actually. This is the problem that we have at the meantime in Beirut. So we hope in the near future to be to take care of this the environment issue, and to at the meantime, no, we don't have the effort to work on it in the government sector actually. So.
Yeah, thanks. Then indeed, that was what came to my mind is, okay, maybe the first step is yeah, either to try to make the government more aware of it, or to try with some grassroots initiatives. But then I guess that they also will need the approval of the government. So I think this really makes this project challenging, that the government is not really aware of or not really interested of this problem.
At the meantime, actually, really no, but we are working actually to let the NGOs to get involved on this small project, to have initiatives, or to get some helps by private sectors, or we are trying actually to also to let the neighborhood to be participate with us to work on it, to improve this area. We are trying actually.
Nice. So indeed,
I would like to add one thing, like being raised in Lebanon. I know very much what Nabila's challenge is in this project. But I think, like as Irina has mentioned, like in this stage, I think awareness is key for the community. That's why there are like a few organizations such as Nahnu. They're working on advocating for the importance of having public spaces, having good urban governance and urban development. So yeah, I think as a start, the solution in that case could be only like awareness and community mobilization.
Yeah, I am in Nahnu actually, and our group are in Nahnu. Yes, we did a lot of work in other places, and as Ms. Yara, she said, but just we are lightening on this square, because now it have a very bad environment in this area, and conflict, all of it in this way. For that, just to have an idea of this square. But yes, we are trying our best to let the NGOs to be participant with us, and in the neighborhood actually. You know, I face a big problem just to take these pictures. I face a big problem to take it. But at the end, we solved the problem, and I took these pictures.
Yeah, you did a great job, Nabila. Thank you so much. I think also Insaf in the comment is is aligning with us. She's saying people who live there will have the answers and the solutions. I think by engaging them through public discussions, debates, a community co-design workshop would be great, and mobilizing local artists through pop-up interventions. Focus on the usage of the experience and opening the floor for discussions as a step. Voice out strategy first is to listen to all, then formulate it. So yeah, indeed.
Yeah, indeed. So thanks, Yara, and thanks, Nabila, also for presenting. We're 10 minutes late, but I would still like to invite you to the closure, to the wrap up of this event that my colleague Thais is going to lead. And she's gonna explain also to us what was the process, quickly, what was the process that the teams went through in order to achieve these great solutions and these great presentations that they just did. So Thais, over.
Yes, thanks, Irene. I hope you can all hear me well, because my connection is a little bit unstable. So just let me know if it's if you cannot hear me at some point. So I just wanted to share a little bit on how this process came about, and explain to you a little bit of our methodology called Exploration Lab. So basically, we invited all youth to be part in this. It's mainly a design research process, which is part then of our first the phase of the research from our methodology of Butterfly Works. But also we tapped a little bit into ideation. So the Exploration Lab ended with an ideation process where all the teams then defined their solutions. Yes, next slide, please. Yeah, so what is an exploration lab? So it's a truly participatory design research in which the users become the researchers of their own lives. So that was really important for us to have them also really map out their own reality, seeing their own context and from their own perspective. So like why we do that is that the exploration lab then aims to listen and see and be open to find new angles to build innovative solutions for improving cities to become more sustainably, environmentally sustainable. In that sense, just a second, Yara, before going to the next slide. It was, yeah, just really important to have them take the lead in the research. So we had a couple of tools where we trained them into, they're also part of our toolbox that was mentioned by Irene, but they had also the lead on defining what was the location, why was it important for them and for the context that they were in, and then mapping out from their perspective, what were the things that they wanted to find out, talking to people. Yeah, so next slide, please. So yeah, the youth then became the researchers of their own lives, investigating their cities, green spaces, their community, and themselves. And in that way, we gained also multi-layered perspective on the topic that they were bringing. So not only from their perspective, but also from the context that we're in and from the people who they interviewed. And so next slide. For 1 week, the youth acted as local researchers. So they conducted design research activities to gather information and data about their own lives. So the activities that we did during the exploration lab was a location map, which had the purpose of mapping out all the elements of the areas that they wished to make it greener. The second activity was a photo walk, observation and reflection. So based on the location, so not all youth defined exactly the same location at first. Some also mapped out different locations, and then during a meeting, they also discussed similarities between the locations or differences, and also defined a little bit what was their focus, what did they really want to find out, and which location was of most importance to them. And then they went off into a photo walk and conducted observation, took photos, reflected about also how they felt in those spaces. So explored all these elements of the areas and identified opportunities, also spoke to people that were there. And then finally in activity 3, they really reflected a bit about what were the challenges and opportunities that they saw, this being from different youth that were either going to the same space. Some of them couldn't be there, so there were also remote teams, but it was a moment also for the teams who went out into the field and took photos to also share back with their team members and then discuss which challenges that they want to tackle and create solutions for. So if you go to the next slide, this is just a brief, not all photos, there were a lot more, but these were a couple of the location maps from the teams where they mapped out the areas, mapped out, yeah, which areas were their focus, but also what was existing around it, what were other supporting organizations or stakeholders that were relevant to this location. Then the next slide with the photo wall. As you see here, there were, of course, in the presentations, you've seen many more photos, but there were a collection of many photos that later on they also took time to look through and analyze and just bring in also a memory of how those locations were and what were the needs that they had identified. And then in the challenges scenario, yeah, just also already brainstorming on some opportunities. So yeah, in the roadside, it's a dump site. So what are opportunities that we see? Or also here, the team in India had different locations that they had thought about defining a solution for, but then they also had a way to analyze and rank them and define which location that they really want to create the solution for. And finally, after the exploration lab ended, which were these 3 main activities, they then analyzed all the data that they had, including photos, interviews, reflections that they did, notes that they took, and then they started generating insights and thinking about how might we question. So questions that then drive them into defining solutions and bringing, ideating to answer these questions that were related to the needs of the locations that they were designing for. So this was before going into the special recognitions data, I just wanted to, just share that this was a little bit of the process, if there's any questions, but also maybe giving some space to the teams to just share how this process also was for them, and how that benefited them to reach the point of the solutions that they reached, that they presented today. Maybe Jackie or Festus or Swarina would also just like to share how the process, like briefly, how the process was for you.
I don't want. Oh, okay. Go, please.
Maybe, Jackie, maybe you can start and then Swarina goes.
Okay, sure. I think one of the things I truly liked about the whole process was us putting ourselves as the case study, so that we can see our behaviors and even things that was not cognitive to us, us trying to question ourselves about it. So that was difficult, fun at the same time. And for sure, talking to other people who see our behavior and tell us what actually happens. One thing I might share was we entered, a matatu does not have, let's say, a dustbin. And the conductor was actually complaining on how people do not put trash in the bags and they just litter the matatu. So it was interesting to hear from other people, looking onto ourselves, the kind of behaviors that we have, especially in community areas.
Nice, thank you. Swarina, yeah.
So firstly, I would like to thank all of you, like Butterfly Works, for this amazing project that you initiated. And one thing which I liked is every time we had a presentation, you started with a small, quick activity, which made it very engaging. And coming to the process, I think because I come from a design background, so there were few, like design thinking was something that I knew, but there were few new things as well, new methodologies that I learned. And also because of this project, I got the opportunity to see my hometown with a different perspective. And thank you about it. Thank you. Yeah.
Nice, thank you, Swarina. Anyone else would like to share anything from the groups or any question?
I think I can go. So this is Diana from Team 254. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Actually, while we were working on our project, something that stood out for me was being empathetic, allowing myself to put myself in the persona's shoe. How do we get to do a case study with the different personas, and also just using ourselves as examples and how we got to analyze the various issues that we found within our community. It was not only a learning opportunity, but also room for us to explore more on what is happening around our community. Despite the ongoing pandemic, most of us, we are used to being in our houses, not going out, only going out when we have to. But it also gave us the chance to also embrace the community with the graffitis around, projects that are ongoing. It was just nice. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Nice, thank you, Diana. Really nice to hear that. Yeah, well, Yeah, and as a special recognitions, we just also wanted to kind of recap all the amazing projects that were presented here today. So firstly, we had the project in India that really tackled the aspect of the past and the present, thinking about heritage and the history and this, collective memory that we have. And so that was also just really interesting, thinking about sustainability on different levels. So not only on creating green spaces, but also thinking about how our memories and the past and our traditions also shape the future. So that was really, really beautiful to see. So thank you so much. For the next project in Kenya, so also thinking about tackling pollution, but also thinking a lot about urban mobility. So making use of what is also already existing. So that was really, really nice with the matutus and thinking about different services and how that can be transformed into more sustainable practices and in integrating the element of game to change behavior. That was also just really inspiring. Thank you so much. And then the project in Nigeria, so really thinking about green parks, so thinking about what is a park, how can that become greener, more sustainable, but also just places where we can just spend more time and have leisure, like reclaiming the public space, making use of that, not wanting to tackle pollution and not having garbage around, and involving the community to lead these movements and claim the spaces that are made for us. And then the next one also in Lebanon, just thinking about the aspect of urbanization and how to tackle urbanization. So thinking also a bit more on a broader scale on urban planning, having involving civil organizations and authorities to think through cities and how they are growing and how to cater for the amount of people that we have in the world today, and creating sustainable models that can be potentially replicated and used as inspiration and reference for other projects worldwide. And finally, the last one also in Lebanon, in Beirut, also just thinking how can we rethink spaces that are around our cities or just around our neighborhoods. So again, similar to the one in Nigeria, but reclaiming public space, making sure that we all have access to it, and generating more awareness of the people in the surrounding location to give purpose and to give meaning to this, to even if it's a square or if it's a park, bigger or smaller scale areas, that they have a purpose and that they can serve the communities and the people that are around for a better and more sustainable life. And finally, if you want to keep in touch with everyone, all the teams that were part of this project, but also us Butterfly Works and other design thinking practitioners worldwide, we invite you to join our community. I think Yara, maybe you can place the link also in the chat. Yeah. Basically, we have a community of practice called the Butterfly Community, which is a network of design thinking experts, a place where you can access networking events, join discussions on design thinking, and just connect with others that are also practicing social design or design for social impact worldwide. And also, as Irene said, maybe we can also add that to the chat, Yara, the link to our toolbox. So all the tools that I mentioned from the Exploration Lab, you can also find it there. And that's it. I don't know, Andrea, if you also want to add any last closing remarks before we close the session.
Only that for all the youth that participated in this innovation, that we will be sending them their certifications for the training. So I think that that will be nice. And also that we really hope to continue seeing you in the butterfly community, because this is very, very exciting. Thank you so much for all the work.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so if you see, Yara sent one link, which is a form. The first one is a form, so you click in the form, so you can register in our community, and then you'll be able to